r/NoSleep. Posted by you/TheRealOtheliath. Someone keeps leaving gifts at my doorstep, and the names of people they want dead. I live by myself, on the first floor of a very cheap apartment. It was right around my budget for an inconspicuous shithole that no one wanted to live in. A lot of bad rep surrounded the place apparently, so badly that this fun little flat of 3 rooms had been marked down to as low as $500, which was a steal for me. I wasn't exactly wealthy and I always had a limited budget on what money I could spend, since the money that gets sent to me from my relatives is pretty sparse but they try their best. So it had always been a peaceful living for me. I didn't mind the unexpected visitors, or the weird noises from its bad maintenance. The neighbors did not once ever know my name, neither did anyone around know my name, and that was fine. And I rarely ever attract people at high school, save for the occasional passing comment on my appearance, though I didn't care that much. The one day, I came home from school to a very odd sight. A gift basket, right at my doorstep, with items like wine, nuts, butter, milk, and many more scrumptious items. Taped to its handle was a white envelope with a red wax seal. I looked around before taking the gift basket and entering in. I first opened the letter, which read, "If you're reading this, Leia, I know what you are. Here is my offering to you, kill these people for me." Below was a list of names of people that I somewhat knew. Ricky Fitzgerald, Ryan Yang, Tyler Lewis, Sophie McGillivray. I was curious as to how this person knew my name or where I lived, but I just decided to ignore it. I tossed it aside and went about my day. I did my homework, ate dinner, then went straight to bed. Though throughout the entire time, I felt eyes boring into the back of my head, as if somewhere, someone was watching me the entire time. I ignored this feeling and went to bed. I woke up, showered, cooked myself some breakfast, and walked out the door to find that there was another gift basket at my doorstep. I took it back inside again to read the letter attached. "You don't understand. I know what you can do. Please kill these people. Or I will tell." I didn't understand yet again. The previous one sounded like a threat, but this one sounded more like begging. I initially thought I could handle a threat or blackmail, but one that seemed desperate caught me off guard. I thought I would investigate further and see who this mystery person was. I knew the person knew where I lived, and how to get to me when I was not in the house. And it is safe to assume that they are stalking me to some degree. I leave the gift basket inside and head to school. I begun my sweep for individuals that could be the one sending me these unsettling messages. My first thought was on the loudest guy in our class. I'll just call him Billy. Billy was the captain of the football team, very charismatic guy, and has had more dates than a calendar. He's had his eye on me for a month, but I never really showed interest, neither did I lead him on. Problem is that he's a rather good person and he'd never resort to that sort of coercion, let alone ask me to kill people, not to mention his extracurricular activities and dates demanded his attention for most of his days, so he likely wasn't free to even drop that off to my doorstep. Second thought shifted to the calmer one at the other side of class, reading through a list of notes and giving free lessons to our unprepared classmates. Let's call him Jason. He was smart, both on the books and on the streets. He was my lab partner and we paired up often for our projects. He likely has deduced the path I take going home, and I have seen him in my neighborhood a few times. Only reason he isn't a prime suspect is the same as Billy, since they're both held back by their activities and we've kept our relationship mostly professional. And then there was the last kid, Ricky. If someone could stink of their sins, Ricky would stink of nepotism and perversion. His parents were pretty wealthy and had some degree of control over the school due to being patrons, so he gets big in the head and thinks he can get away with anything. And unfortunately, he has. 5 harassment cases that resulted in those poor girls moving away. I nearly was at the receiving end of his terror but pulled all the stops to make sure he couldn't manipulate me. I was his worst enemy, and the one he could not control. Still, a threat would explain everything, but asking me to kill someone was too complicated, and he would certainly not send me a gift basket with a letter. Not to mention that his name was on the list, so he would not be doing himself any favors. And it did not necessarily narrow down who the perpetrator was. I decided to forego thinking about it. I went through the day doing my business before returning to the thought back in recess, before I felt my shoulder get bumped by someone. I knew who it was as I scowled. It was that piece of shit Ricky. "Did I do that?" he said in a mock tone. "Being blissfully unaware that your fat ass occupies nearly every available space?" I replied with much snark. "Watch your tone." He always resorted to this whenever he'd been verbally outplayed, which honestly wasn't hard. Or what? I dared him to expose whatever he threatened those poor girls with. Red-faced with anger, he quickly turns to eat by himself. I heard the girls gossiping behind me about him. I could pick out a few key information from their talk. That creep Ricky's at it again. I heard from Sophie that he got another one. Is that why she skipped class yesterday? She seems to be skipping today as well. That was it, that was the final piece I needed. I knew what I needed to do now. I let the day roll by as usual, and then walked home. I found another gift basket at my door, this time with an alarmingly high amount of cash in it, about $1,000 worth, alongside some unsettlingly expensive items like jewelry, watches, and the like. The letter was there again, this time sounding even more desperate. Time is running out. Please do as I ask. Please. This time, I needed to know who it was. If this gift giving was going to follow the same routine, then I should be able to catch the perpetrator. I decided to brew coffee for myself and wait the night out instead of going to sleep. I sat in front of the doorway, occasionally checking the peephole to see if someone was there. I did this every 15 minutes or so. At about 5:30 a.m., I checked to see a shadow cast in my hallway as it approached my door. A figure wearing a black hoodie and carrying a basket. I found my suspect. As soon as they stopped outside the door, I burst open with a knife shouting, "Aha!" The figure screamed as she nearly fell backwards, dropping the gift basket. I quickly took it and found nothing in it. Except a knife, and the letter. While the perpetrator was getting their bearings, I opened the letter and read it. "Please, I'm begging you. I have nothing else left to give. I'll give you my life if you want so." I raised an eyebrow at this as I looked at the mysterious figure remove her hood, revealing a pretty blonde girl with blue eyes. My suspicions were correct, it was Maria. Maria is a fairly popular student in our school, good grades, good looks, and fun personality. She'd been skipping class for the past few days, calling in sick, but the day she called in sick was also the day I started receiving these strange packages from her. But heavens know why she's giving me gift baskets and these weird letters. She looked very close to crying as I sighed and helped her up, opening the door for her. "Come inside and explain everything." I brewed Maria some coffee and let her gather everything together as I patiently waited for her to get herself together. "You okay?" I asked. "I'm fine, I just need to recall things," Maria replied as she sniffled, prompting me to hand her a handkerchief to wipe her tears and nose with. Thanks. "So let me just start this simply, why were you sending me these gifts?" To kill the people I wanted dead," Maria replied, as if the question had an obvious answer. "Okay, follow-up question, why do you want them dead?" I asked, to which Maria looked hesitant to explain. It's a long story," Maria replied before I poured her a cup and smiled. "I've got time." When she explained everything, it all began to fall into place. Maria was another target of Ricky's horrid harassment schemes. When she had been caught alone with him, she tried to scream for help. Ryan Yang, our homeroom teacher, witnessed it but did nothing about it. Maria barely escaped with her dignity intact from Ricky's molesting. She tried to open up about it to a few people, Sophie McGillivray was one of them. Sophie had unfortunately made fun of her and called her Ricky's slut, and Tyler only saw fit to profit from this, blackmailing Maria to pay him a certain amount or else he'd spread rumors about her. A young girl could only take so much abuse and mistreatment, so she resorted to desperate measures. But that only left one question. "Why me then?" I asked, though Maria looked too hesitant to explain. "I saw you, when I was walking home by your house. I saw through your window. A burglar breaking in through your window. I was about to call the police when a tentacle held him and tossed him out. It terrified him, it terrified me. Then I saw you look out with satisfaction, then went back inside," Maria said before bringing out some books on the table. "After what happened with Ricky and those monsters, I got desperate. I saw you as my ticket out of this, so I researched everything about what you could be. And I came to the conclusion that you were an eldritch abomination that assumed human form. That's why I've been giving you the gifts. They were offerings." "Wow, Maria, that's insane," I quickly retorted as I looked at the books, all by Lovecraft. "I got desperate, okay? Maybe I was just seeing things and being a stupid desperate bitch," Maria screamed back at me before breaking down again. I looked at her with pity, moving towards her side, and giving her a hug, and letting her release her anguish. I got so overwhelmed, I didn't tell my parents and I decided to steal all those things." I shushed gently, placing a finger on her lips. I then gave her another comforting hug. "It's okay. I'm not going to judge, but trust me, things will get better." But Maria tried to retort as I gently guided her to my bedroom. "You need to sleep and rest," I softly said as I delicately pushed her to make her lie down. "I promise you, things will be okay. They might not be now, but they will be." "But how do you know?" Maria asked timidly, tucking herself in as she didn't let go of my hand. "Trust me." I smiled as I watched her close her eyes, as I saw the yellow sky rise out my window. After a few days, the problem seemed to resolve itself. Ricky had finally been exposed and arrested, but died in police custody. Mr. Yang's house and property burned down due to an unidentified arsonist. Someone had apparently seen the person on his property but did not inform the authorities right away. Sophie apparently had some sex tapes on her computer, because they had spread like wildfire on the internet. Never heard from her again. And Tyler got injured by a mugger on his way home. Maria believes it was all me. I just shrug at it. Maria still gives gifts every now and then, but instead of leaving them at my doorstep, she likes to invite herself in for a chat over some food and such. And the letters thankfully weren't desperate begging or another hit list but just the sweetest words that I can receive. It's become a bit of a regular thing lately, and strangely, I like her company. Blasphemous coming from the girl who tried her best to keep to herself, I know. And well, that leads to today. Of course, all that meeting and chatting was bound to lead someplace, so of course we ended up being an item. As soon as we got into college, we moved together into a nicer apartment and we'd been having a blast together since then. It had been a running joke between the two of us that she is my worshipper and I am her goddess. She still calls her gifts to me her offerings every now and then, which just makes me blush a little. Whenever we go to sleep together, she likes to cling to me. A force of habit since the first day I lulled her to sleep, but I'm more than happy to let her do so. I like to think back to the day that she told me what she thought I was. I grin a little thinking about it, since I technically never denied the allegation. And I think she knows it too. I gave my sleeping worshipper a peck on a cheek, before I snuck a tentacle up the wall to turn off the lights.